I can't even explain why I'm writing this. Maybe I just need to let it out before it consumes me completely. Or maybe if I don't put it all down, I'll convince myself it never happened. But it did. I know what I saw. It all began with a hunch, barely a whisper of doubt at first. It seemed trivial. The way she stared at her phone a little too long, the way she smiled at messages she wouldn't share. I brushed it off, told myself I was overthinking. That after so many years together, I was just imagining things out of insecurity. Then came the fabrications. She claimed she was working late, yet her paycheck remained unchanged. She said she was meeting friends for dinner, yet returned home carrying the scent of a stranger's cologne. The lies started to stack up, each one more transparent than the last. Still, I kept telling myself it wasn't what I feared. That was until tonight. She believed I had left town for a work trip. I had packed everything, made my calls, gave her a goodbye kiss like always. But the trip got canceled last minute. I decided not to tell her, thinking I'd surprise her with a night-out dinner, maybe a movie. But the surprise ended up being mine. When I got to her place, her car was nowhere to be seen. That struck me as odd. She should have been home. I checked the old location-sharing app we'd installed years ago for when we traveled separately. She never turned it off. According to it, she was across town. At a bar. That was the first time I felt something sharp twist inside me. Yet I still tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was with coworkers, maybe it slipped her mind. I drove over, not quite sure what I'd discover. And then there she was. Sitting outside, laughing. That laugh hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just smiling, she was radiant, the way she used to be. But it wasn't because of me. He was there. A man I didn't recognize. Relaxed, confident, leaning in close. And she let him. She leaned toward him like she wanted more. My breath caught. My fingers reached for my phone instinctively. I knew I'd need proof. She would deny it, twist the narrative. I had to be ready. I raised the phone to take a photo. That's when she noticed me. Her face went pale in an instant. The laughter died. The man turned to look at me too, his grin vanishing. Emily jumped to her feet, knocking over her drink in the process. Then came the line that made my blood boil. It was just a kiss. I hadn't said a word. Didn't have to. She was already defending it, trying to erase the truth I had witnessed. I kept silent, staring, letting the weight of it all hang in the air. She reached out, clutching my arm. She begged me to let her explain, asked me to take her home so we could talk, said we could fix it. Fix it? I should have turned my back and walked away. I should have left her there to deal with the mess she created. But I didn't. I unlocked the car door. Deep down, I already knew this was far from over. The moment she sat down beside me, the tension filled the car like smoke. She couldn't sit still, kept wringing her hands, clearly running through 1,000 things to say. I had no interest in hearing any of it. My eyes stayed glued to the road. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. My jaw was clenched, unmoving. Streetlights flashed across her face now and then, but I refused to look her way. "Are you going to say anything?" she asked, her voice soft and unsure. "It meant nothing. I promise." A bitter laugh almost escaped me, but I forced it back. Meant nothing? The way she looked at him, the way he touched her, those things spoke louder than anything she could try to tell me. She tried again. "It was a dumb mistake, that's all." I let out a sharp breath and cut her off. "A mistake? That's what you're calling it?" She flinched and nodded. "Yes. And how long have you been making the same mistake?" I finally turned toward her. The moment our eyes met, she recoiled, guilt written all over her face. "It was just tonight," she said quickly, too quickly. I slammed the brakes as we hit a red light and the tires squealed in protest. She gasped and grabbed the dashboard for balance. "Liar," I muttered, my tone cold and flat. Emily swallowed, her voice shaking. "Please, just hear me out." I didn't want to listen. But I did. She started pouring out excuse after excuse. That she had felt lonely. That I was always too busy. That it just happened, that she didn't even understand why she let it happen. But none of it meant anything. Her words were like water thrown at a wildfire, useless. When the light turned green, I hit the gas harder than I should have. "You're still holding something back," I said under my breath. She drew in a shaky breath. "What are you talking about?" I clenched my teeth. "You wouldn't have reacted like that if it was just a kiss. If this really was the first time, you wouldn't have looked like you'd seen a ghost." Silence. I glanced over at her and saw her frozen expression. That was all the confirmation I needed. I nodded slowly. "Thought so." Her voice broke as she pleaded again, "Please, let's just get home and talk." I wasn't even sure if there was a place I could still call home. We rolled into the driveway and I turned off the engine. Neither of us made a move. The house stood there, silent and shadowed, almost like it had already heard the news. as if it had been bracing for this very moment all along. She reached out, her hand hovering over the door handle. "Wait," I said. She froze, looking at me with wide, uncertain eyes. "I want the truth. Before anything else." Her breathing hitched. "I've already told you the truth." "No," I countered sharply. "You told me what you thought I'd accept. Now tell me what you've been keeping from me." Her hands tensed in her lap, fingers curling tightly. Her lower lip started to tremble. And then, just when I expected her to double down with another excuse, she spoke. "I didn't want you to find out this way." That one line chilled me to the core, because it meant something bigger was buried beneath the surface. Something she had worked to keep hidden. I gripped the steering wheel hard, my knuckles aching from the pressure. The weight of her words settled like cement in my chest, erasing any illusion I had left. Slowly, I turned to look at her. The faint light from the street lamp illuminated her face, revealing the panic flickering in her eyes. She was scared. And honestly, she had every reason to be. "You didn't want me to find out this way?" I repeated, my tone unnervingly calm. "Then tell me, Emily, how exactly were you planning to let me know?" She turned her head away, fingers clutching the edge of her dress like a child caught sneaking candy. I was going to tell you." A laugh escaped me, dry and hollow. "Oh really? When exactly? Before or after he settled into her home? Before or after you two toasted your little victory in the bed we used to share?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I refused to be swayed. I'd seen too much, felt too much to fall for those again. "It's not how it looks," she whispered. "Then make me understand," I snapped. My voice had the sharpness of shattered glass. She swallowed hard, clearly struggling. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I never meant for any of it. But—" She paused, and I felt my patience wearing thinner by the second. "But what, Emily?" I growled. "Just say it already." She inhaled shakily, and then the truth came out, soft but sharp as a dagger. "But I have feelings for him." Something inside me broke apart right then. I'd expected excuses, another half-truth at best. But this was worse. Much worse. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a confession. A choice. She hadn't just strayed, she'd fallen for him. Turning my head away, I pressed my fingers against my forehead, trying to comprehend the betrayal she had just laid bare. Everything I thought I knew was unraveling. "How long?" I asked at last. She hesitated again. "Emily," I warned. "A few months," she admitted quietly. The breath I exhaled was slow and fractured. My chest thudded with the echo of my heartbeat. A few months. While I had been out working to support us, she had been with him. And every night I'd held her close, she had been thinking of someone else. "Who is he?" I asked, even though part of me didn't want to hear the answer. She said nothing. I turned back to her, my gaze piercing. "Who is he?" There was another pause. And then, so softly it barely registered, she whispered a name that turned my blood to ice. I stopped breathing. That name. I knew it. And instantly, the betrayal became something far worse than I had imagined. This wasn't just about lies. It was something that shattered everything I thought was real. The name lingered between us like the moment just before a storm explodes. My heart slowed, each beat crashing inside my head like a drum. I looked at her, stunned. "Say it again." She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her gaze dropped, ashamed. "Emily," I said, voice low but unshaking. "Look at me and say his name." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed, and her hands trembled against her seatbelt like it was the only thing anchoring her. "Mark," she finally whispered. My whole body went rigid. My fingers twitched against the steering wheel. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh at the absurdity of it. Mark. Mark. My best friend. He had stood by my side at our wedding. We'd been through college together. He had been in our home more times than I could count. I had trusted him with everything, and he was the one who betrayed me. This wasn't just an affair. It was a deliberate, ruthless betrayal. It hit in a way that made breathing painful. I let out a bitter laugh and shook my head. "Unbelievable," I muttered, gripping the wheel so hard the color drained from my hands. She winced at my reaction. "It's not what you think," she tried to explain. "Stop," I cut her off sharply. "Don't even try to twist this." I glared at her. "What I think is that you've been sleeping with my best friend for months behind my back. Tell me I'm wrong." Her face crumpled under the weight of guilt. She said nothing. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. The anger I had buried deep erupted. I slammed my fist into the dashboard, the sound cracking through the air and making her jolt in fear. "Unbelievable, Emily." "Mark." That's when she broke down, her sobs small and broken. I didn't care anymore. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice demanding an answer. She wiped her nose and mumbled, "A few months." I narrowed my eyes. "Exact dates, Emily." Her expression collapsed and she stammered, Since June." "June." That meant it had been happening for 6 months, half a year. My thoughts spiraled, racing through memories of the time we'd spent together. I thought back to all those evenings I had invited Mark over to watch the game, all those times Emily had laughed at his jokes more than she should have, those exchanged glances they thought I didn't notice. It had all been right in front of me and I had been completely oblivious. I dragged a hand down my face and let out a harsh breath. Where? I asked. She looked at me, unsure. Where did it happen, Emily? Was it in our home? Here? At hotels? Her eyes dropped to the floor. I already knew. It was in our house, wasn't it? My voice was low, strained. Her silence confirmed everything. A sickening wave of nausea rolled through me. They had betrayed me in the very space I believed was sacred, the bed we shared, the home we built. The same bed where I once thought we were creating a future together. My stomach turned. You're disgusting, I muttered, shaking my head in disbelief. That was when she broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, she cried, I still love you. I made a mistake. I don't even know why I turned to face her, my expression unreadable. You don't know why? I repeated. She nodded, reaching for me, but I recoiled. Cheating isn't something that just happens, Emily. You don't accidentally fall into someone else's arms and suddenly realize, oh no, I guess I've been betraying my husband for 6 months. Tears streamed down her face. It just happened. I never meant for it to become anything. I let out a cold laugh. You didn't mean for it to? And yet you continued. Again and again. You had half a year to stop, but you didn't. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. You weren't sorry when you were with him, I said, voice low and steady. You're only sorry because you got caught. Her sobs intensified. We can fix this. Please, we can fix it. Fix this. I echoed, a hollow laugh escaping me. Emily, this isn't something small. You didn't just break a dish. This was 6 months of lies and betrayal. You destroyed us. I looked at her, my pulse pounding, then finally spoke the words I had been holding back. We're done. Her sobs echoed in the car, desperate and aching. But I was numb. Whatever I had felt for her, love, loyalty, hope, was unraveling, piece by piece, leaving only a void where my heart used to be. She repeated my words back to me as though hearing them caused her physical pain. We're done. I stared straight ahead. Yeah. Her voice cracked. No. Please don't say that. We can rebuild. Start again. I interrupted, my voice flat. You think we can rebuild after you spent 6 months sneaking around? After you chose him, my best friend? She trembled, wiping away her tears with shaky hands. I never wanted to hurt you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Then why did you keep doing it, Emily? Why did you let him touch you? Why did you let him take what was mine? Her lips quivered. I know. No, I snapped. No more excuses. I want the truth, Emily. No more lies. No more pretending. Just tell me the truth. There was a long silence. The dim glow from the streetlights illuminated her tear-streaked face, mascara smeared, lips trembling. Then she finally said it. I thought I loved him. The chill that swept through my chest was suffocating. She didn't just admit to the affair, she admitted to choosing him. Her words pressed down on me like a heavy weight, making it hard to breathe. I don't know when it started, she continued, her voice barely a whisper. At first, it was something small. Something stupid. She exhaled shakily. But then I started looking forward to seeing him. I thought about him even when I was with you. Her words were like knives. Every sentence shattered another piece of the love I had for her. I never wanted to leave you, she added quickly. I swear I didn't. I shook my head and laughed without humor. You never planned to? That makes everything okay then, doesn't it, Emily? She reached for my hand again. This time, I didn't just pull away, I recoiled like her touch was fire. Don't, I said sharply. She lowered her hand to her lap, eyes wide with despair. Please, she begged. I know I made a huge mistake. I don't deserve another chance, but I still love you. I swear I do. I turned toward her, my eyes filled with something she hadn't seen in me before. Contempt. No, Emily, I said coldly. You don't love me. You loved sneaking around. You loved the excitement. You loved lying to my face and pretending everything was fine. But real love? You never had that for me. She broke into another sob. I do. I really do love you. If you had truly loved me, I whispered, you wouldn't have done this. The silence that followed was almost unbearable, echoing louder than any words could. I drew in a deep breath and exhaled slowly through my nose, trying to calm the storm raging within me. 2 choices stood before me. I could sit there and listen, let her talk, let her twist the story into something redeemable. Let her cry, plead, try to convince us both there was still hope, still a piece of our love worth holding on to. Or I could choose the alternative, step out of the car, gather my things, and leave her behind. My eyes locked onto hers, scanning the features of a woman I once knew so well. But now that woman was gone. The person sitting beside me wasn't the one I married, she was someone I no longer recognized. A stranger. And strangers didn't get to influence the course of my life. Without saying another word, I undid my seatbelt, pushed the car door open, and stepped out into the biting night air. Her crying intensified. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice cracking. I turned briefly to meet her gaze. "Someplace far from you." And with that I walked into the house. Away from the deception. Away from the pain. And perhaps toward a chance at something more honest. Inside, everything felt off. It wasn't just the quiet, it was the absence of warmth, of belonging. The place felt hollow, stripped of everything that once made it feel like home. I stood there for a beat, taking in the shadowy living room, listening faintly to Emily's sobs outside. I should have felt some kind of closure, or even anger. But all I felt was emptiness. This was the same house where we had built a life together. The walls had once echoed with laughter, late-night conversations, and whispered promises. Now they stood as cold reminders of a relationship that had crumbled. Slowly, I made my way to the kitchen. Each step felt heavier than the last. The lingering trace of her perfume still hung in the air, stirring nausea in my gut. I reached for a glass, but my hand trembled too much to hold it steady. This was really happening. It wasn't some terrible dream I could wake up from. Emily had made her choice. For half a year, she had betrayed me, and not once had guilt stopped her. And with him, my closest friend. The truth hit me again, sending a fresh wave of sickness through me. I clutched the countertop to keep myself grounded. How had I been so blind? All the signs had been there, the late nights, the vague excuses, the way her mind seemed miles away even when she was right beside me. It had all been laid out plainly, but I had refused to see it. I had told myself we were strong, that she loved me the way I loved her. A sound from the front door pulled me back to the present. I looked over just as Emily walked in. Her face was streaked with tears, mascara wiped away, though the pain remained visible. She looked so small, so lost, like a child who'd been caught doing something wrong. I didn't speak. She stepped toward me hesitantly. "Please," she murmured, "don't shut me out." I didn't move. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she continued, her voice barely audible. "I know I've hurt you. But I do love you. And I don't want to lose you." A bitter chuckle escaped me. "Emily, you already did." She winced. "No. I can't believe that. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can you." I lifted a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "You think this is something we can repair?" Her silence told me everything. I moved past her, heading toward the bedroom. I heard her footsteps behind me. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't respond. I reached for the closet, pulled out my suitcase, and started stuffing clothes into it. Emily's sob caught in her throat. "You're really leaving?" she said through a broken whisper. I kept packing. "Please, don't do this," she begged. "I made a mistake, but in the end I chose you." I froze. My hand gripped the zipper tightly before I turned slowly to face her. "You chose me?" I asked. She nodded quickly, desperation in her eyes. "Yes. I told Mark it was over. I told him I wanted us." Something inside me gave way. "No, Emily," I said, my voice low and steady. "You didn't choose me. You ran out of time." Her face went pale. I stepped closer. "You picked me because you got caught. Because you realized your fantasy wasn't going to last. You didn't end it because you wanted this life, you ended it because the lie was falling apart." Her lips quivered. "That's not true." I let out a slow breath and shook my head. "You had half a year to choose me. And every single day you chose him instead." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't mean it." "Stop." She choked back another sob as I zipped the suitcase, the sound echoing with finality. "I'm done," I said firmly. She shook her head. "No. You can't just throw away everything we built together. Everything we—" I walked past her, suitcase in hand. "Watch me." And just like that I left the bedroom. Left the house. Left us behind. I didn't turn back. The chill outside struck my skin like a slap, but I welcomed it. Anything was better than the stifling heaviness that clung to me in that house. Emily stood frozen in the doorway, her expression painted with desperation, her hands clutching the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her voice trembled through the quiet night, asking where I was headed, but I didn't respond. The truth was I had no idea. I tossed my suitcase into the trunk and slammed it shut, the loud thud echoing down the empty street. For a few moments I just stood there, hands on my hips, trying to catch my breath and find some sense of calm. This wasn't the life I imagined for myself. I envisioned a loving wife, a loyal best friend, a place that felt like home. But all I was left with was betrayal, a broken marriage, and a version of my life I could no longer recognize. Emily stepped onto the porch, her voice trembling as she pleaded with me. She begged me to come back inside so we could talk things through. I turned my head slightly to glance at her, my tone steady and strangely quiet. Talk about what, Emily? I asked. How you ended up in bed with my best friend and still claimed to love me. Her body recoiled like I had struck her. Wrapping her arms tightly around herself, she whispered, I do love you, as if saying it enough would make it true. I laughed bitterly, unable to hold back. You've got a strange way of showing it, I muttered. The silence between us grew heavy. A distant engine hummed, leaves rustled, and my heart pounded with a fierce rhythm. Then she took a small step forward. If you walk away now, we won't be able to come back from this, she warned. And in that moment, it hit me, she still didn't understand. Emily thought this was just another fight, one we'd cry through and recover from. She believed we'd somehow patch things up and return to normal. But she was wrong. There was no going back. You don't get it, I said, my voice worn and hoarse. We're already done. You ended everything the moment you chose him. When you allowed him to touch you, you erased us. Her tears began to fall, her entire frame trembling as if the truth itself was too much to bear. I didn't mean to, she started, but I cut her off. Don't say that. You meant every single part of it. You meant to message him. You meant to meet him. You meant to undress and let him in. Every part of it was your decision. She gasped, clearly shaken. You meant it all, I continued, stepping closer. The only thing you didn't plan was getting caught. Her sobs came fast and choked now, her hands covering her face. But I wasn't done. This wasn't just a betrayal against me. It was against everything we built together. Our home. Our vows. Every promise you made and broke. Emily shook her head violently, her fingers gripping her temples as if she could erase what had happened. I can fix it, she stammered. I'll end things with him. I'll do anything. But I stopped her again. You already did everything, I said coldly. And then, almost mockingly, my phone buzzed. I pulled it from my pocket, moving like a machine. One new message. Mark, man, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I never meant to hurt you. I stared at those words as something inside me twisted into a darker place. I turned the screen so she could see it. Even he didn't try to deny it. She stared at the phone, her expression collapsing into utter defeat. I took a deep breath, climbed into my car, started the engine, and drove away without another word. She didn't follow me. She didn't call out. Because she knew. She finally understood I wasn't coming back. As I drove into the night, I had no idea where I was going. I had no destination, no clear path, only an overwhelming need to get as far away from that house as possible. At first, there was nothing but emptiness, a hollow space where my marriage used to live. But as the distance grew, as the city lights dimmed behind me, something else began to surface. A feeling I hadn't known in what felt like years. Relief. For the first time in so long, I wasn't shackled by lies or weighed down by betrayal. I wasn't battling to hold onto a love that had already slipped through my fingers. I didn't need to prove anything to someone who had treated me as disposable. The pressure that had crushed my chest for months had finally lifted. I pulled into a small gas station on the edge of the city, the neon lights buzzing gently in the night. Stepping out of the car, I stretched, letting the cool air hit my face. I caught my reflection in the window and paused. The man staring back at me looked different. Worn, yes, but not broken. And for the first time in forever, I actually respected who I saw. I wasn't a shattered husband anymore. I wasn't some naive man clinging to false hope. I was someone who had walked through fire and made it out the other side stronger. I reached for my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I landed on a name I hadn't touched in years. Ryan. My old roommate from college. The guy who used to tell me I deserved more. The one who warned me about Emily long before I ever proposed. I hit the call button. He picked up after the second ring. Man, where have you been? It's been forever. I exhaled slowly, not even realizing I'd been holding my breath. It really had been a long time. Hey, are you still down in Florida? I asked. Yeah, I am. Why do you ask? Came the reply. I turned to glance at my car, then shifted my eyes to the open road ahead, a path filled with opportunities I'd neglected for far too long. With a newfound steadiness in my voice, I said, I think it's time I start over. There was a pause before I continued. Would it be cool if I stayed at your place for a while? Ryan chuckled warmly. Man, get yourself over here. I'll have a cold one ready for you. A genuine smile spread across my face, the first one in what felt like ages. I shifted the gear into drive and eased onto the highway, leaving behind the ruins of everything I once held onto. This wasn't about escaping. I was heading towards something brighter. Something more real. Toward freedom. Toward joy. Toward finding myself again.